That topic today is problems, specifically how to solve problems better. And I'm excited about covering it because it's something I struggle with as well, and I love teaching things, frankly, that help me own them and get better at them. First thing we need to know is let's start out with some basic premises. I'm going to give you some very tactical steps here as we move forward, but problems need energy to live. I want you to own that. Remember this, problems need energy to live. And so the concept should be that we solve problems, but we don't have to pour and deplete ourselves of energy. Because the more energy you give something, the more it expands. We want to be in the max out universe, we want to pour our energy and expense our energy towards the solution, not towards the problem. So the first thing I want you to write down is 90% of your energy, focus, time, and thought should be towards the solution, not towards the problem itself. This is a mistake most people make because they expend all the energy into the problem. They obsess over the problem. And when you expand energy, it grows to survive. And the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the solution becomes more and more difficult. So the first thing is, can you consciously begin to focus on energy expansion into the solution, 90% of it into the solution and not into the problem. What we do is we repeat that problem over and over and over again, and we magnify it to the point where we don't come up with realistic solutions and we deplete ourselves as energy towards the solution. And so focus going forward, when a problem arises, a challenge arises, that you focus 90% of your energy and thoughts on the solution and not repeating the problem to yourself. And again, I want to remind you, we want problems in our lives. They're the one opportunity we have to grow. Without the existence of problems and challenges, there's no opportunities for growth in life. And so we don't wish for a life that doesn't have challenges and problems, even though it seems like we would want one. Number one, you're always going to have problems and challenges in life. So today is such a great day to begin to accept strategies and a formula and a mindset that'll help you do that. You're somebody who wants to grow and improve and change in your life and become a maxed out version and a better version of yourself in every area. The only opportunity you have to do that is when problems and challenges arise. These are growth opportunities in our life. So when they arise, it's very important that you see them as an opportunity to grow. And again, I don't mean that in a rah-rah, foofy way. It's very true. It's important that we distinguish what it means, because remember this, in other audios I've talked about the quality of our life is comprised of the quality of emotions we live with. Our life is our emotions, right? If you have the emotions of happiness and joy and ecstasy and peace and faith and passion and intensity and winning, that's a great life. If you have a life that's filled with emotions regularly of depression, anxiety, fear, stress, worry, anger, that's a totally different quality of life. So our emotions dictate the quality of our life. And so when a stimulus like a problem comes up, we better be thinking it's an opportunity to grow, and we better be expensing our energy towards the solution, or we start to experience the wrong emotions. Why? Because in our life, emotions come from meaning. Because when problems come up in life, the meaning we take from the event dictates the emotion we experience. And so that emotion dictates the quality of our life. And so I want you going forward, when a problem arises, to feel the emotion and take the meaning away that this is an opportunity to grow, to expand. If you look back at your life in hindsight, the problems and challenges you have all made you better when you solved them. So those are the keys to begin today. The question is, how do we solve them? Is there a process? Is there a mindset? Are there some steps that when these arise, I've got a recipe and a formula? And that's what I want to share with you today. So now I want to start out with a very basic 3-step formula to begin with. Then we're going to get very granular and very specific. There are 3 steps that I always take once I've arrived where I'm ready to take action towards solving problems. Number 1 is make a decision. Once you've made a decision, make it. Number 2, massive certainty. Flood yourself with certainty. You can't execute at a high level with self-doubt or a doubt about the process, the doubt about your strategy. Flood yourself with certainty that you know what you've got is going to work. And then 3rd, take insane action. This is a recipe in every area of your life. I don't care if it's in business, in family, in sports. Make a decision. Flood yourself with certainty and take massive action. This process I use with the athletes I coach. I use it with the entertainers, with the politicians, with the business people. I'm always reminding them all the time. I'm repeating them constantly. Make a decision. People wait around too long for the perfect plan. I'd rather have a flawed plan executed with certainty and massive action than the perfect plan executed with doubt and very little action. There is no perfect decision. Make one. This will crush most problems. We've already talked about spending 90% of our time on the solution and not the problem. I'm going to give you another set of percentages here. The vast majority of problems that arise in your life should be solved immediately, like 85% of them. Resolved immediately. Make a decision, massive certainty, take action, it's gone. That means without a lot of deliberation. You've got to start to build the habit of being decisive. Successful people, happy people, leaders are decisive people. And I believe somewhere, if there's 100 problems, challenges in life, 85 of them should be decided immediately with not a lot of deliberation, and then certainty and massive action will eliminate that challenge and that problem most of the time. It's the people who procrastinate on the problem or ignore it or think it might go away that gives that problem time to magnify, to fester, to grow, to where now it's become bigger than it needed to be. Second point, get clear on what this problem really means. Is this a problem that's really going to matter in 5 years? Really? Because what we do is, we talked earlier about meaning. What we do is most people, a problem comes up and we begin to flood ourselves when they stack it and stack it. This is a pattern most people go into, and they lose perspective on how really important this problem is. They lose perspective. They get foggy because they've increased their stress level so high that now the problem is difficult to solve because you've lost perspective on really how big of a deal it is. And so make sure you're very clear. Is this something that's going to matter in 5 years? Because if it's not one of those types of problems, for the most part, massive action, 85%. We're going to talk today about the 15% of the time where it requires a deliberation and a process to solve it. But don't be conflicted or confused into thinking most of the things that arise in your life, most of the time your challenge is you're not solving it quickly enough. You're not being deliberate. You're not being decisive. You're not getting totally certain. Certainty is so huge. Flood yourself with certainty, the reasons it'll work over and over again. And then most people don't understand you can obliterate most problems with just massive action. What stress really is when a problem comes up is the fear of loss. And what you do is you begin to give this a disempowering meaning and you begin to feel like you're going to lose something, which is why having a process means so much to me, because when I know I have a process to solve a problem, I'm so much less fearful of the loss or the stress that it's going to cause me. And so just know, when you begin to get these feelings, it's where your focus is going that's causing this stress level to rise in you unnecessarily, and it's probably a pattern you have. We've talked about this a lot in other audios and videos where you have a pattern. And my hallucination for many of you is that when a problem arises, you begin to focus on the problem more than the solution. You begin to magnify your stress level, make a disempowering meaning, which is this fear you're going to lose something. And oftentimes, it's not even a thing. Oftentimes, it's you're afraid you're going to lose certainty, one of the 6 needs. You're going to lose your uncertainty. You're going to lose your significance. You might lose someone's love, right? You may lose the ability to grow or the ability to contribute. But you begin to focus on what you're going to lose, and that fear magnetizes the problem and causes you stress. Stress is not a great place to live from. It's one of those disempowering meanings, and it's also a terrible place to make decisions from to solve problems. And the third way you create stress when a problem comes up is physically, in your body, what I call like your state, your physiology. You begin to get tense, don't you? You begin to hunch over. Your breathing gets shallow. You kind of get closed, that worry, that feeling we get. You know what I'm talking about. This stress level that you use your body to create. Listen to what I just said. You're using your body in such a way to magnetize and elevate your stress level. See, that physiology of hunched over, shallow breathing is something that is the same as depression, as fear, as worry, as stress, as pain, as anxiety. It's the same thing you do with your body to create all those emotions. You may need to check if you do this to yourself when a problem arises. The other type of physiology is like when we're working out, when we're laughing, right? Ecstasy if you're with your significant other, right? That problem, that celebration, that's a different physiology, isn't it? It's your back straight, you're breathing deeply, you're smiling, you're using your whole body, your face muscles, right? Your face is smiling. There's a certain way you do laughter and joy and pleasure and ecstasy physically, isn't there? And so when a problem arises, check your physiology. You can't make a great decision from a bad physiology. You can't make a decision in stress. And so I'm checking these things all the time. One of the biggest things I check when a problem rises is my physiology, because I have a pattern where I go back to that depressed, worried, stress, anxiety physiology, and then I either can't make a decision, I can't execute. So check that pattern with you. When a problem arises, what do I do physically? This is something nobody talks about. But you probably get quiet and hunched over. You start repeating those thoughts and magnifying it, and you're using your body in such a way that elevates the stress and gives you a disempowering physiology to make great decisions. So get back to that workout, ecstasy, laughter, joy, passion, physiology. Just move your body, do some jumping jacks, take a quick run, take a walk, right? You've all probably had the experience where you've solved problems working out, you've solved problems in the shower, you've solved problems in a peak physical state. So change your physiology, you can change the ability to solve that problem. Okay, so let's now transition into a very step-by-step process that I want you to utilize when a problem and challenge arises that's not in the 85% category that should be solved right away, right? Remember this, worry is a misuse of your imagination. So is stress. So make sure you're taking an empowering meaning. One more meaning I want you to take away is problems are always an indicator that you're making progress. This is so counterintuitive to what we think. When a problem arises, where our mind will naturally go is, I'm losing something, as I said earlier. I'm taking a step backwards. But the actual arrival of the problem, its mere presence in your life, is an indicator you're on the road to progress. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. It's an impediment to the next level, but it's an indicator of progress. These are all things you must know and believe to be true, so you take the right meaning away, so you make the right decisions. Number one thing you must do, define reality. What does this really mean? What is really happening right now? Not the story you've already started to tell yourself about what's happening, but can you get clear? Can you step out of your own situation and look at the problem from an independent perspective, from an unbiased perspective, and define reality? What really is the challenge? What really is the problem? Without telling your story about it. We all begin to tell an immediate story. Here we go again. People always do this to me. I'm going to lose that. If I had made a better decision here. And what we do at this stage way too early is we begin to assign blame. Blame should never be assigned in the problem-solving process. That is post-mortem. That is after you're done solving the problem and it is dead. The mistake we make is we start to tell this story and whose fault it is. It's my fault, it's their fault. And what happens is that depletes our energy, it distracts our focus from the solution, and it begins this story that we start stacking ourselves. So when that tendency comes up in you, that need, that behavior, that pattern, who's to blame? Whose fault is it? This takes you away from the solution. It does not solve the problem, it magnifies the problem. Always remember this. We will assign blame when it's over. I'm all about the solution, laser focused on the solution. See, the ability to get laser focused on something in life, you can obliterate things in life. You can achieve such massive things if you begin to build the muscle of eliminating distractions, eliminating the stories, eliminating the stress, and getting perfect clarity on where you really are. And the number one stressor, the number one distraction is, who's to blame? What's my story? Before it's even been solved, we want to assign blame. That is a distraction. Don't do it. Number two, you have to get a clear vision of what you want. Like exactly what do you want when this problem is solved? What do you want to be happening different than it is now specifically? It can't be a general thing. It can't be that you just want to eliminate this. What is it exactly that I want? With specificity, with clarity. Because this laser focus now, I can move towards a solution if I'm clear on what it is, which is number three. Once I'm clear on what it is, get resourceful. Once you figured out exactly what it is in number two, the third step is to get totally resourceful about solving the problem. What does that mean? Who are the people that can help you? The resources, the places, the things, the circumstances, the collaborations. Who is that you might need to talk to who solved a similar problem in your life? What are the resources available to you? The more you begin to point out to yourself, I have all these resources at my disposal, the more your anxiety and stress level begins to go down, and it's true. Are there problems like this you've solved in the past? Something similar in the past you've solved or somebody else has solved? Most people get very unresourceful. They feel like there's no hope, no help. So ask yourself, how do I get resourceful? What are my resources here? And then the last thing, if I could just say this to you that are people of faith, or if you plug into the universe, why don't you embrace the fact and the belief that you're being guided? that there's a blessing happening in your life, or that you can plug into something that's got great answers for you. There's resources everywhere for you. For those of you that are people of faith, or even if you're somebody who you don't have a specific religion, but you plug into the energy of the world. Why is it that when a problem arises, we abandon our God, we abandon our faith, we abandon the fact that we're guided, we abandon the higher consciousness that we believe in? Why is it that when a problem arises, we abandon that? Why don't you believe you're guided? My great resource is my contacts, my friends, my previous experience, maybe the people around me that I can talk to, but my biggest one is my God. I'm being guided, I'm being blessed, I'm favored. Plug into that divine inspiration, that divine understanding. If you pray for their guidance, or you pray for their help, you pray for their will, right? And you can pray for the information as well. So begin to feel you're guided. Get super resourceful is the third step. The fourth empowering question you just ask yourself very quickly: what can I learn from this? People say to me, that's really difficult to do in the middle of the problem. No, it's not. It's just something that's a habit you've not built yet. What can I learn from this? What's the learning experience? Because as you're learning as you go, this problem is less likely to repeat itself in our lives. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's nothing wrong with even having problems. There's a challenge if we continue to repeat the same mistake that causes the same problems. And so what can I learn from this? Now you're leveraging this problem to grow. Now this isn't something you're just overcoming and putting behind you, but you're using this experience and this challenge to move in front of it, not just get it behind you. There's a big difference in that perspective. What's great about this problem? That's a difficult question to ask when you're going through the middle of it, Ed. No, it's not. Not if you build the habit, not if you begin to think like this, because what that does is it changes the meaning to you. It puts you in an empowering state and not a disempowering state. So what is great about this? There are always great things in having problems and challenges, whether it's going to be that you'll be more prepared next time, or you're going to put things in place that will prevent it from happening next time, or what you're going to learn from it, or how you're going to grow from it, or who you're going to connect with from it, or the other ancillary things that are going to be improved, or the fact that it just gives you a challenge and keeps you alive, right? But what's great about the problem? It just helps you take the right meaning. The more we can get in the right state and the right meaning, the more we're going to be able to do the three things we talked about, which is make that decision, load ourselves with certainty, and take massive, insane action. And number 5, what's not perfect yet? And that question is different than what's great. What's not perfect yet? And you begin to understand what could make it more perfect. It helps you refine and get more specific, and it helps you with your certainty. Number 6, what am I willing to do to make it the way I want it? This is important because there will be things in a minute you're not willing to do. But what are you willing to do? Is it an expenditure of money, time, resources? Calling in a favor with somebody, calling a meeting, willing to call a friend about something. What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? And that leads to number 7. What are you not willing to do to make it the way you want it? Maybe there's an extent you will not go to solve this problem. There's a level to which you will go. There are things you won't do. It might be, I won't compromise my integrity. I won't lie. I'm not going to spend more than this money on it, or this time, or this resource, or this energy. This is important to quantify as well because it helps create for us more certainty and it gives us more clarity. I won't do this. I won't cheat. I won't be unethical. I won't raise my voice. I won't ruin a relationship over this. It might be with a person at your job or who works for you and they're creating a problem for you. I've had situations like this. A few weeks ago, one of my colleagues was not holding up their end of the bargain on their work and I wanted to solve that problem. And I thought about how I could grow from it, what was good about it, what I could learn from it. I got resourceful about it. I decided what I was willing to do, but I also decided what I wasn't willing to do. And what I wasn't willing to do to solve this problem was to ruin that relationship with this person, was to hurt their self-confidence, was to give them more pain and anxiety and worry in their own life because I knew part of that was the reason they were struggling that created the problem in the first place. Their own pain, their own anxiety, their own worry, their own fears helped create this problem I was solving. And I was unwilling to contribute more to that to solve it. And then lastly, how can I enjoy the process? Wouldn't it be nice to enjoy the process of overcoming challenges and problems rather than it always being a grind, always being something we hate, always being painful? Sometimes challenges and problems are just painful things we're going to get through. But these questions can empower you to make it less this way. And so ask yourself that question, what can I do to enjoy this? Because the more you can find enjoyment in the process of something that's going to always be in your life, just think about this. We have this sort of fantasy that if I can get rich enough, or I can get in the perfect relationship, or I have the best business, or maybe if I just don't do anything and I retire someday, I won't have problems and challenges in my life. Now, we consciously know that's not true, but it's sort of the fantasy we live with. And now that I point that out, you go, that is crazy. Of course I'm always going to have these things. So since you have an acceptance that problems and challenges are going to exist, isn't it probably important that you learn to enjoy the process of overcoming them and solving them? I think all the time, man, how can I enjoy this? I think, man, what are all the great things that are going to happen when this is solved? Whose lives are going to be better when this is solved? And that helps me enjoy the process. I also remind myself this problem is helping me grow. It's in existence because I'm making progress in my life. So all these things fit a meaning that help us make the best decisions possible. And then finally, I want to give you 4 things that I think are mandatory in solving problems. Number 1, all problems must be solved on paper. And I'll substitute paper for a keyboard. But I think they need to be written out problems. There's a process that happens and a clarity of thought when we move the problem just out of our mind where all the emotions are and onto a piece of paper where we get resourceful and we get specific. And so all problems in the 15% category need to be solved on paper. When you write them down, you begin to see them. Also, by putting the problem outside of your mind and on a piece of paper, you remove yourself from the emotion of the problem and you become outside the problem, and your perspective changes simply by writing it. It gives you a different level of awareness to solve the problem from. It removes you from it and the emotion oftentimes, and it gives you a worldview, a perspective of above it that's different than when you're in it in your head. Number 2 is we talked earlier about being clear on what you want, but I also want to attach to that having a perspective as to why you want it. So not only being very clear about what you want, but why you want it, and then ask yourself inside that question, how do I know when it was solved? What evidence, what would need to happen? What do I exactly want? Why do I want it? And what's the evidence that it was solved? So that you will move past it, so that it's something that is now behind you, but more importantly, you are in front of it. Third is always remember decisions are made on probability. Once you've made that decision, right, what have we talked about? Flood yourself with certainty and take massive action. But all decisions are made on probability, meaning there's never a perfect plan. You may make a decision to solve a problem that doesn't work, but what we're trying to do is make a decision that gives us the highest probability of solving it. So make all your decisions based on probability, not perfection. If you're sitting here waiting for the perfect solution, or if it doesn't work, or you've had any experience in your life when you tried to solve something and it didn't happen, you're setting up an unfair standard for yourself. Problem solving is about probability, so make sure you're making a decision that gives you the highest probability of solving it. And then fourth, all decisions need what I'd call like value clarity. Often you're going to have several results you could choose from to solve a problem, or there'll be several results when you solve the problem. And then you got to be clear about their order of importance. Sometimes one problem has 3 or 4 problems connected to it, or the solution of it will cause 3 or 4 different things. So it's getting clarity on importance level of solving the problem in its order. And then finally, I want to remind you of one thing on solving anything in your life, on making any change, whether it's solving a problem or just taking your life to a different level. The pathway to the best solutions, the pathway to great change in our life is always 75% what I'd call psychology or thinking, and 25% of it is the actual physical execution of the problem. So when you're making the decisions, focus 75% on the psychology and the mindset, 25% on the execution. And so if you're thinking that the wealthier you get or the more successful you get, the fewer problems you're gonna have, that's not the case. And all the people that are achieving in their life right now are nodding their heads across the world listening to this, because they would all tell you, and you could tell this too, you have more problems now than you did when you were a kid. Right now in your life, if you're at a higher level than you were 5 years ago, there are more frequent problems and sometimes even bigger problems as you progress in life. That's why it's so true that problems and challenges are an indication of progress. Show me the size of your problem and I will show you the size of your success, and frankly the size and scope of your life. I'm telling you, as someone whose life's grown pretty substantially the last 25 or 30 years, I don't have fewer problems, I have more. And they're not smaller, they're bigger, and every one of them is such a wonderful opportunity for me to grow and to change and to experience, to help other people, but it's also been an indication all the way in my life of progress. I'd be terrified, I'd be miserable, I'd be concerned if my life started to not have problems on a regular basis and challenges. I do love them, I do look at what's great about them, I do look at how I can enjoy them, because they're a constant and a staple in all of our lives. And so it's not going to go away as you climb the ladder. That's why having this formula and this recipe is so important, and important that I give it to you now. Hey, it's Ed Mylett. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask you to please subscribe to the show. If you just click the subscribe button here, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. At the same time, if you're subscribed, you're going to get access to the programs before anybody else in the world gets access to them. So if you would, click subscribe right here. Thanks so much. Today, I can't wait to share with you what I call the 3 steps of mastery. See, there's 3 stages that you have to go through in order to master something in life. And oftentimes, we quit in the first stage because we don't realize it's just a natural progression to getting good at something. And so, in any pursuit you have, if you want to start a new business, a new career, you want to learn to swim. Like right now, I'm picked up the hobby of riding horses. And that's a unique thing to do at 50 years old. And so, I'm addicted to it, so it's kind of a new pursuit of mine. So whether you started a new business, or you're in the middle of a business you've got, or you got people in your business who are newer, or you're trying something new, it's very easy to beat ourselves up or really not understand that there are 3 stages of mastery. And it's just mandatory. You're going to go through them. You can't cheat the system. And so in the 3 stages of mastery, let me tell you what they are. And then I'll break them down for you. There's the awkward stage at anything you begin to do, the awkward stage. And if you do enough repetitions, you can move to what I call the mechanical stage. And then from the mechanical stage, eventually you move to what I call the natural stage. Everybody looks at you and goes, man, you're incredible. You're a natural. Like whatever you do for a living right now, if you've been doing it for a long time, the first day on your job, I guarantee you were awkward. I guarantee you everything about it was awkward. Where to go, the people's names, what to call things, all of it was completely awkward, wasn't it? You probably even, a lot of people, their first night at their job, they'll have a nightmare that night. I remember my first job I was a busboy at the Whole Enchilada restaurant. And I didn't know, my bang job at the Whole Enchilada was really simple. I cleaned up your table and I brought you your chips and salsa. That's really the whole job. And for some reason at 17 years old, it freaked me out. Because I had to walk up to people's tables and say hello, and I'm a super introvert. And I remember going home that first night, I go, I can't do this. It's just too much. It's too much for me. Chips and salsa, cleaning up their table. It just overwhelmed me, which is pretty hilarious. And I had a nightmare that night, like a nightmare of the job. Like everyone wanted new chips. We need more salsa. We need more chips. And you gotta clean up our table. You live. And I have this horrible nightmare of this very pretty simple job that I had. And so what I was in the awkward stage of that job. And if you'd have come back about 6 weeks later, I'd bust a bunch of tables. Now I know where the salsa is. I know where to go in the back and get the chips. I know where they warmed them. I kind of got my little, how are you guys this evening? I'm Eddie. I got my little rap down. It was mechanical. I knew the mechanics of it, but still I was slower than most. I couldn't carry the drinks and the chips on the plate the right way. But you know what I mean? Like it was mechanical. I knew the mechanics. I know where to clock in. But he came back a year later, man. I was natural. I'm flipping chips. I'm spinning them on my head. The difference. You know what I mean? Like the salsa. Hey, good morning. Good to see you. Good evening. Hey, Mr. Jones, welcome back. I'd seen I was natural. So you walked in there, it's like, this guy's a natural busboy. Well, the truth is that's true in everything. Right now, I started to learn to ride horses, right? First day out there, you don't think about these things. I'm like, what type of horse is it? I didn't even know the breed. I didn't even know their word. What do you call a female horse? What's a bridle? What's a halter? How do you put a saddle on them? What side do you get on the horse, the left or the right? How do you get off? The reins, are you riding Western or English? I'm like, I have no idea. I guess Western. I was totally awkward. And people that are horse people, they're just like, it's all natural to them, right? They get on the horse, they ride, they saddle it up. How do you back it up? How do you stop it? Like, it's crazy, right? But now I've been doing it for 6 months. I've ridden quite a bit, and now I'm kind of mechanical. I know how to put the bridle on, walk it with the halter. I know how to put the bridle on the horse. I know how to put the saddle on. I know where to get on. I know how to ride. And I'm pretty good. But if you watch me and you were really experienced in riding horses, you go, he kind of gets it. He's mechanical. The mechanical stage is like this. You ever go to like a wedding or you're at a club or something, and the person's got the dance moves down, but they kind of dance to the lyrics and not the beat? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, the guy's got the moves, but it's just, there's something, he's got the mechanics, but I think he's dancing to the words and not the beat. You know what I mean? That's the mechanical stage. But eventually you see somebody, they're like, oh, they got the rhythm and the beat. That's the natural stage. So the question is, how do you move from awkward to mechanical? You ready? Repetitions and awareness. repetitions and awareness. So no matter what you do, you got to do more and more reps at it, more and more experience. And as you're getting that experience, being aware of the things that worked and didn't, getting coaching, getting feedback, course correcting, and improving. Success is not complicated. So no matter what it is you're doing, if you're an athlete and you're listening and you've had to switch positions, you were on the offensive side, now you're on the defensive side. It's not that playing defense isn't for you. It's that you better do a lot of reps. You better have a lot of awareness. You better watch a lot of film. You better do a course correction. So you do it through repetitions, awkward, enough reps, and awareness and course corrections, you'll move to mechanical. And then from the mechanical phase, it's the same process. More and more and more repetitions, more and more course correction and awareness until you become natural. And in business, all the money's made at the natural phase. Oftentimes in business, the money is predicated upon your ability to get natural and your ability to train other people at their jobs or crafts to become natural as well. What's most incredible to me, if I can be candid with you, is there's an art and a science to being successful at anything. And most people love the art, the mindset, the thinking, the thought processes. They love the art form of it. What do I need to think? What do I need to vision? What do I need to dream? Subconscious mind, meditation, blah, blah, blah. Most people don't have a tolerance for the science part. The science part's real simple. It's math. You got to do more reps. If you're in business, you got to do more calls, more emails, more appointments, more meetings, more setbacks. You got to do the reps to move out of that awkward stage. The awareness, the course correction, now you're mechanical. You want to get from mechanical, if you're in business, you want to get great at business, you want to become the best ever, more reps, more course correction, more awareness, you become natural. You pick up golf. You want to play a great golf game? You better get out on the driving range and hit a bunch of balls, and you better have someone videoing you, and you better get course correction and have awareness. And if you do enough reps, hit enough balls with enough correction, with enough awareness, you'll become mechanical. When you start playing golf, it's real simple. How do you hold the club? You baseball grip, overlap grip. What's the grip? Right? How long should your clubs be? Where's your backswing? What's a swing plane? How do you come through the ball? What's your right hand do? Your left hand, your low. There's a lot to it. You watch someone start to play golf. It's crazy to watch, isn't it? But if they do enough reps, they do enough learning, they get enough coaching and correction, they can become mechanical. Then you watch people play mechanical golf. They got a good golf swing, but then eventually they become natural and they play their game. If you're going to play the game, you have to have a tolerance for the repetitions. So one of the reasons that we don't do the reps is we stop is because we don't give ourselves credit for what I call invisible progress. Invisible progress means this. There's such a thing as what I call compound pounding. Compound pounding means basically this, that as you're hitting an object over and over again and you compound the hitting of that object, over time you break it down, right? But most of that progress is invisible. We don't see it. So as we're in the awkward stage and we're doing the reps, we're making progress, but it's usually not visible to us. Or if we're in the mechanical stage, we're doing the reps, the compound pounding of doing it over and over again is happening, but we can't see the progress. So what most people do is they quit before they get natural at anything because there doesn't appear to be physical, visible progress. Most of us want to see progress to believe it's happening. But the truth is in life, in most things, even in a loving relationship, a lot of the progress is happening invisibly. Certainly true in business. So let me give you the best example of it. I wrote about this in my first book, but a long time ago, I got invited to a birthday party for a young person, and I didn't really want to go to it because they were so young and my kids were grown. But I went to the birthday party because it was a friend of mine, and they had a piñata for the birthday boy. And so if you all know what a piñata is, it's very interesting, but like basically kids hitting a piñata with a bat, right? And it reminded me of business so much because you get there, and what do? They blindfold this poor little kid and then spin him around and hand him a bat, like a weapon, right? So the kid spun around. He has no idea where he's going. He's just kind of flailing away. Can't even find the piñata. That's how most people that start out in business feel, by the way. They're just flailing away. They don't even know where the target is. They're just swinging, right? Just like this little guy. And I'm watching him going, there's an analogy here for sure. So finally, there's a course correction and an awareness. And the dad points the little guy at the piñata, even though the blindfold's still on. So he still can't see it, but now he's at least pointed in the right direction. That's what that awkward phase is like. And now he's wailing on the piñata, hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. And he's getting more and more tired. And this piñata is not breaking. Right? So finally he goes, I quit. Why? There was no visible progress. So then what they do, they take the blindfold off him. He goes and plays on the swing set. They grab the next little kid. It was a little girl. Same thing. They blindfold her. She's like a new person in business. She's flailing away, not even hitting the piñata. She doesn't even know where the target is, right? Finally, she gets course correction, makes an adjustment, some awareness, and she's wailing on this piñata. No candy comes out. There's no progress. So she quits. You could picture it. You've seen this before. Next little guy gets up. He hits it 5, 6, 10 times. He quits. Next person gets up. She quits. After about 7 kids have hit in this piñata, the only person left is the little 4-year-old little boy. And everyone's quit because there was no progress. But what was happening was all the reps were happening, even though there was no visible progress. So all the reps were happening. So this little 4-year-old gets up. They put the blindfold on him, spin him around, and he takes one swing. Bam! Hits the piñata. All the candy comes out. And all the kids come running from the swing set back, and everyone's celebrating and getting all the candy. Let me ask you a question. Who broke the piñata? Was it the final blow by the 4-year-old, the one shot? Or was it the cumulative blows that everybody took hitting the piñata along the way that ended up eventually breaking it down? And we all know the answer. It was the cumulative blows to that piñata, the cumulative repetitions that were breaking it down over and over, even though you couldn't visibly see the progress. And see, in life, most people will quit in their pursuit of their dream before the candy comes out because they don't see visible progress, even though the whole time compound pounding is happening as you're moving from the awkward stage. You're doing the reps, you're course correcting, you're aware. Now you're in the mechanical stage. And you're course correcting and you're aware and you keep hitting the piñata and doing the reps of your life, of your dream. And then the natural stage. Most people will quit on their dream before the candy comes out, even though progress is being made. Most people quit one blow away from getting all the candy in life. My recommendation to you is life is a lot like that piñata. You're making more progress than you think you are. Keep hitting the piñata of your life and know that as you do this, you're moving from stage to stage to stage. And that if you do it long enough, the metaphorical candy of whatever that candy is for you, the money, the success, the award, the recognition, the acknowledgement, the emotion, the relationship, the candy eventually comes out. The question is, will you keep hitting the piñata of your life, doing the reps until the candy's there, and will you be there to collect the candy and celebrate? From now on, whatever you're doing, go, this is okay. It's where I'm supposed to be. I've only done 10 of these. Of course, I'm still awkward. Or I've only done 45 of these. Hey, Ed, how many does it take? It's different for different people. The question is, do you have the determination, the relentlessness, the resiliency to stay long enough to move through all 3 stages until you get paid? So the question just becomes this: are you determined enough to do the reps? Are you determined enough to do the course correction and have the awareness to move through the different stages? And my wish for you is that you become natural as soon as possible. The sooner you do the reps, the sooner you do the course corrections, the sooner you have the self-awareness, the sooner you become natural, and we're off to the races and having blissful success in our life. How do you talk with somebody if it's a difficult conversation? One of the things I saw that you said is you ask in your writing, do your patterns of judging others reflect behaviors you don't like or want to recognize or won't recognize about yourself? So when we're in a difficult conversation with somebody, maybe we disagree with them. I want to go to the hard stuff first. Like I'm a Republican and someone's a Democrat, or I'm a Democrat and someone's a Republican. Something like that, these hard conversations. What are some of the keys in being better at doing it so it's actually a productive experience?
There are definitely keys that we're going to talk about. And it's also important to know that when you're in a difficult conversation, both parties have to be willing to start with truth. And if we can't have a foundation of truth, then you're going to have the conversation will remain difficult. There's opinions and there's facts and there's emotions. And we get all of those mixed up, right? And they all get discombobbled and jumbled up in our brain. But if we realize that my opinion is just my opinion and it's not the truth, then we can say, okay, what's driving my opinion? And we sort of can open our hand and go, this is why I'm thinking how I'm thinking. This is what my standards are. There's 4 archetypal questions in the book. This is what I'm worried about. This is my concern. Here's what I'd like. We can start to just open our hands and say, okay, I have an opinion. Let's dance with that. And let's see what we can learn from each other. That's a very different conversation with fists than fists coming at each other.
Yeah, and you also say in the book that I've learned to do this myself, is to fall in love with asking questions
Right.
when you're talking with somebody, whether you're a business leader and trying to create change in your company, or whether you're in an argument with a spouse or disagreement, or you got to talk about something different. Like I've used politics as an example because it's the big one, right? Right? Like they're
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
we're
Right.
bad. I'm right,
Yeah.
you're wrong. And the idea of making statements all the time and telling stories as opposed to asking questions.
Right. Right. And the idea of whether I'm doing it to myself and asking myself what's driving my opinion, what's driving my judgment, and why am I so hooked on the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can also, the questions help us, like each question can help us open someone else's hand. Because we can ask, well, what do you really want? What do you desire here? What do you want out of this? What are your standards for measuring this opinion that you have? So our questions can literally help other people unlock and unfist, right?
Yeah.
And but we aren't trained to ask questions. We're trained to have answers. That's one of the major dilemmas. And then we get into school and we're rewarded for raising our hand. And then we get into business and we're rewarded for being the smartest person in the room. Right.
Right.
And that's a counter to the opposite effect is asking questions.
Well, this notion of raising your hand was my next thing. So you're reading my mind. And I think one of the art forms of being a great conversationalist is actually the art of listening. And that's why questions matter so much. And you're precisely right. In school, the teacher's still talking and asking the question. We're taught, we're rewarded. Raise your hand while they're still talking. And what that does to me, I want you to speak to this. To me, what that does to me is it means I'm really not listening to what you're saying. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to say back to you in my answer or my judgment or my assessment about you. Most people are already raising their hand, metaphorically, when most other people are still talking, and they wonder, why am I not connecting with this person? Why can't we find common ground? Because while they're talking, you've got your hand raised already. I got the answer. I know the truth. I want to say something, and rather finishing and letting them finish their statement.
Yeah. So our brain is spinning our answer. And so there's no space actually to absorb what's coming at us from the other person. Right. And part of that, actually the main reason of that is we get addicted to our position. Our ego and our identity gets addicted to, I believe this. And if I believe this is true, then that defines who I am. And that is often why we enter with fists or why we enter defensively, and can't just say, okay, I do have an opinion. I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to see if I can explore really what's driving this other person's thinking.
But if I just want to go back for a second, everybody, first thing to ask yourself is, what's your ability to ask questions and to ask questions without judgment as someone's answering you? In other words, can you learn the art of not raising your hand metaphorically when someone's talking and be fully present with their answer, absent as much as you can of judgment? We'll talk about triggers in a little bit because you have some brilliant stuff in there on triggers, which I teach in other areas of life. I never thought about in terms of a conversation. But the one thing that opened my eyes and why I wanted you on, among many things, is this idea of there's 4 conversations.
Right.
And one of them is storytelling. But take the time on this and elaborate. What are the 4 different conversations and what do they mean?
So these are 4 types of conversations. They organize the book, and the reason they work well to do that is each conversation has its own lessons to learn, tools to try, practices to try on, because each conversation demands different skill sets. And they're all interconnected. And we're generally, without knowing about the conversation, we're just in conversation like fish in water. And as soon as we get, wait a minute, there's storytelling, there's collaboration, there's creativity, and there's commitment conversations, already we have a different lens to think about conversations.
That's right.
If I took you to spend 6 months with the Inuits in Alaska, and they taught you there's 27 names for snow in those 6 months, when we came back to New England, you would never see snow the same way. Because all of a sudden you have distinctions about snow that allow you to see and perceive and have a different story about snow. Right? Conversations the same way. If we can begin to think about different conversations and different ways to listen and different ways to ask questions and why it matters, we can't be in conversation as innocently. right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
go, oh, I need to wake up here a little bit because I'm locked down and I'm creating a fight because I'm locked down, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the four conversations are just the beginning to say we can start looking at conversations with a better lens.
So good. The four he said, by the way, but I just want to make sure you get it, are storytelling, collaborative conversations, creative conversations, and commitment conversations. I want to
Right.
give you a compliment on how your work helped me a little bit on the storytelling part, or listening for someone's story.
Yeah.
I have a friend who I was watching two friends argue. One's very right wing and one's very left wing. Both these dudes I love. I love both these
Yep.
guys. And
Yep.
I actually understand the perspectives of both of them. And so the conversation was actually about welfare and taxes. And
Hmm.
my left-leaning friend was, they were kind of arguing at first.
Hmm.
And you should be paying your fair share. You don't want to help the underprivileged. You don't know what this is like. And the other guy's like, wait a minute, you shouldn't be lazy. You should get a job, and it should be temporary. And the normal positions, they're both really getting ingrained in it.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
because of your work, I'm like, wait a minute. And the one guy that was for welfare, I said, John, I said, brother, really? What's the story? Like, why are you so passionate about that welfare should exist, right? God
Right.
wanted to build a bridge between these dudes. And anyway,
Right.
John, who, by the way, you resemble John visually.
Oh,
John says he's a really strong, masculine guy. And he goes, well, man, you guys don't know this, but I was on welfare. I was a little boy, and it
wow.
saved my family. And
Wow.
there was a time where, as a little boy, I was actually with my mother on the street begging for money so we could eat. And it was a horrible existence. And I was a scared little boy, and it was traumatic for me. And thank God my mother got on welfare. And you know what? My
Mm.
mother stayed on welfare for quite a while. And my mom didn't really turn her life around, but I did. And now I'm a major league tax player. And I know you, buddy, over there on the right side, like all the taxes I'm paying. But you don't know what it's like not to have food. You don't. And I watched him tell the story, and I had to
Mm.
force it. And I watched my right-leaning friend listen, and
Yeah.
the judgment level, which is what you talk about, the judgment level was so far reduced, where this is the case,
Yeah.
ironically, where the story served us.
Yeah.
And because I kind of forced it because of your work to listen. And that kind of comes from questions. And it goes to my next point with you. You
Yeah.
talk about triggers often. This welfare conversation for my friend was a trigger why he was getting angry with the right-leaning friend. Like, you're not sensitive. You don't care. He's
Yeah.
triggered by that thing. So talk a little bit about in ourselves evaluating our triggers when we're listening to somebody.
The storytelling conversation is the first one for a very good reason,
Hmm.
because unless we begin to understand the stories we tell ourselves, right? Some help us, some harm us,
Mm-hmm.
right? But until we understand our storytelling patterns, and I use patterns in a very particular way because it takes sting out of judgment. The patterns we have around stories, the patterns we have around how we get triggered, the patterns we have around reacting to people, we didn't even choose those. They're unconscious patterns by our family, by our culture, by our teachers, by our friends, or just our social stuff. So we have patterns, right? So we can start looking at the story I'm telling as a pattern. I can then look at myself with less judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, what your friend did was he was able to reveal his story
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about his childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a couple things happening. He's revealing, he's opening his hand. I'm concerned because I know what it's like to be on the other side.
Yeah.
I have my standards say that, we can afford to help take care of some of these people because they do need it.
Mm-hmm.
And, so he's revealing his hand. And also it begins to show some vulnerability.
Mm.
And so if I show some vulnerability, the other person, or in your case with that conversation, as your friend shared his story, that vulnerability changes the other person. That reduces that tension.
All conversations where there's tension, there's somehow involved in that is a judgment of the other person. What does one do? Because it's hard. You're like, this guy's crazy. He's out of his mind. What a bozo. It's very difficult to do. He really believes this crap. You catch yourself mid-sentence already raising your hand going, this dude is, let me fix this guy, right? Let me fix this. So what do you do when you're starting to feel this judgment or because maybe the guy is crazy, right? Like but
Yeah.
what I found out in my life is like, you're not going to change that person by attacking them. You're not going to change that person by somehow being more authoritative than them, which we'll talk about in a minute in business about the power dynamic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what is a practice that I can do when I'm in midst judgment almost of somebody going, what in the world are you talking about? Is there something
Yeah.
you do? What's a technique or a thought?
One technique I like, and it's a sort of a metaphor of if something's coming at you and you really dislike what's going on, your automatic pattern, right, is to react,
Yes.
right? Because it goes into your system, goes through your brain, and the pattern pops out.
Mhm.
Very little effort on your part,
That's right. That's right.
right?
It's triggered.
So the idea is to begin to name your pattern.
Hmm.
So if you have a pattern of where a certain kind of person, or a certain kind of conversation, whether it's politics or sex or abortion, that is a trigger for you, just be totally aware of that pattern and name it. In fact, there's a thing called voice dialogue where you can actually name that voice in your head. Like
Mhm.
there's snobby Chuck, or there's intellectual Chuck, or there's hurt little boy Chuck. You
Yeah.
know, you can sort of name it, and if you can name the patterns and become familiar with it,
Very good.
then you might be able to catch it before it enters your body.
It loses its power over you when you become aware of it and name it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can catch it. And then if you catch it, then literally in the book, the 4 questions that
Mhm.
peppers through the book,
Yep.
just ask yourself, is there a power issue here? If I have a strong judgment, what standard am I basing that on?
Mhm.
I mean, standards are in every judgment we have.
One of the main reasons I do it is I want people to experience more bliss and more peace in their life. And that's why I've wanted you here so badly for so long.
That's exactly what we do.
I know
We
it's
have
what you
these small capsule programs
do.
called sky breathing techniques. And when they practice it, they find themselves in a completely different space.
Mm.
They're able to shed the anger and frustration, get connected with one's own inner state, inner peace.
Through breathing.
To breathe.
You also have a book coming out called Notes for the Journey Within.
Correct.
Let's because that's really the journey I'm on right now, and my audience knows it. I'm on this journey within. I think a lot of people master the external game of their life. They get pretty good at achieving different things, but the internal game is a different thing altogether. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because you used meditation as a tool with these leaders. And part of meditation, connected to meditation to me, is breathing, right? Is
Correct,
some yoga
correct,
practices.
correct.
What would you tell the average person listening to this who's like, I don't know about this meditation thing. I can't quiet my mind, and, breathing, really? I'm going to start breathing better, and that's going to change my life. Because, by the way, breath work has absolutely transformed my life.
Correct.
And for me, I must tell you, one of the main reasons your teachings have helped me is, I'm sure it's the breathing itself, but it's actually the time I've taken just to be with my body and to be with myself and to just pay more attention to me, and my breathing and getting quiet has caused me to be much more, I think I'd call it self-aware and intentional about different things. So what would you tell people, because meditation is this broad topic, and breathing, what would you share with us?
I would call it as a process of mental hygiene.
Mental hygiene.
Like dental hygiene, it's a mental hygiene. We get so stressed, and neither at home nor in school we learn what to do when we are upset,
Right.
when our moods are bad, when we are in rage, when we are restless. Nobody has taught us how to manage our mind. And to manage the mind directly is almost impossible.
Mm.
And breath is the link. For every rhythm in the breath, there is a connection to our emotion and our state of mind. So breathing in certain patterns, certain ways, can help us to come out of the despondency we feel with our own moods.
Really good. What I've noticed when I'm not in control of my breathing and anger rises in me, And they've been proving this too, that there's a lack of heart and brain coherence that happens at one time. And you actually give yourself a kind of a form of a lobotomy. When you're very angry and your breathing isn't being regulated, you're not paying attention to it, you actually give yourself a lobotomy. You don't process information as well. You don't make good decisions.
No, yeah.
Correct? And that's what you mean by this hygiene. It's cleaning the system to some extent.
Correct. And the breathing and meditation brings clarity in mind and focus in our awareness, in our attention span. Today what we see is the lack of attention span in colleges and schools. Our attention span is reducing day by day. Breathing and meditation help us to get over this attention deficiency syndrome. And there is more intuitive ability that comes up within you. You become more creative. And this is what you want, whether you are in business or in academics, all that you need is an intuitive ability, force from within.
This is why you're brilliant. Let me tell you, I want to elaborate on that. Can I add to what you just said and acknowledge it? So what my breathing and my meditation work has done for me is my attention span has increased. And what I noticed with me, it was odd, like my paying attention to things that were always there that I didn't. And this may sound really corny, but it led to business success. So let me tell you, as I started to do more breath work and more meditation work, my ability to pay attention longer has increased tremendously. And I didn't realize how quickly in a day I go, oh, let me check my phone again. Oh, let me see this. Let me turn the TV on. I didn't realize at 52 years old how much my attention span had shrunk. And it sounds funny, but I started to notice, this sounds funny, everybody, but listen to me. I started to notice like wrinkles on my hand that weren't there before. Paying attention to my hand. I've seen things that were there all the time. Certain trees in my backyard that have been there the entire time I lived there that I have never seen or recognized before. I've noticed the beauty in these trees. I noticed there's a part of my yard where I didn't even know it, where there's a hill that's in their yard. I thought it was flat. I noticed these little things. You think, well, what does that matter? I don't know, but it gave me a lot of peace and joy. And then when I'm in business meetings, now I'm noticing emotions on people and facial expressions and tonality that I wasn't paying attention to. That's made me a better speaker, a better businessman. But that goes all the way back to breath work and meditation. These little symptoms showed up of trees and flowers and a breeze that have led to better decision making.
Yes, Ed, you are absolutely right. The first thing that it does is it improves your perception, observation, and expression. You'll be able to express yourself much better, much clearer to people. That's one thing. I mean, the communication breakdown today in the world is because of this. Lack of expression and lack of understanding of the others. All these benefits happen. There are 100 benefits,
There are.
Established evidence-based benefits on this.
Can you imagine if every world leader of every significant country meditated 30 minutes a day?
Oh, we'll have a wonderful...
Can you imagine? Let me ask you this. What do we get wrong about meditation? Is there something that culture gets wrong about it, that they don't understand, that's a mistaken belief system about it?
I don't think any religion or any faith-based organization opposes meditation.
No?
Meditation is getting connected to yourself. That makes your prayers deeper. I have a comparison between prayer and meditation. Prayer is like, God, give me this, give me that. Meditation is, oh, here I am ready to listen to you. What do you have to say to me?
So good. Do you know that my dreams have become more vivid and clear also at night? I just want everybody to hear this. And I'm telling you, this isn't foofy stuff. I mean, it's foofy stuff, but it's also business stuff. It's life stuff. What you just said about your ability to express yourself and to communicate. Now, since you used the word self, let's go pretty deep here, because there's other stuff I want to ask you. So you said self. What is self? I've heard you say you are not your body. You are not even your thoughts or your mind. So who am I? What is self then? If I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my mind, and I'm not my body, what and who are we?
We cannot say I'm just my body. I'm not just my thoughts. I'm not just my emotions. You cannot say I'm not the body, but You can say, I'm not just my body.
Not just. Okay.
I'm much more than the body, because body is changing, but there is something in me is not changing. Our thoughts are changing, emotions are changing. There is one aspect in you that is a reference point of all changes. Without that, you can't even notice changes, right?
Right.
You can't say, I have changed, unless there is somebody inside who has not changed.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
So, change can only be noticed with a reference which is non-change. And this non-changing aspect inside of you that doesn't die, that doesn't, age, and that source of all energy is not an entity, but it is a field, it's an energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And with this reference in life, our other activities, our emotions, our dealings, everything gets a good foothold. They become very stable. The glimpse of your non-changing entity or aspect inside of you can make your life so much more stable and powerful and focused, and and can give impotence to your activity, your dynamism.
Do you think that that's why I want to ask you this, because this is recent work for me, like call it a year that I've been doing. I've noticed that things that used to make me very worried or very angry or give me great anxiety or trepidation
Doesn't do anymore.
It doesn't do it anymore. Or at least it does it a lot less. Is that a product of this?
Absolutely.
Do you have that? So
you're right on the dot. Yes.
Yeah.
You may get upset even now, but that doesn't stay too long.
Right.
Even you may get angry, you may shout something, but, it doesn't just touch you, it doesn't sink into you so much. So there is a part of you which remains very blissful, calm, steady, and, serene.
You're right. My faith has always given me a great deal of comfort. I'm a Christian. It's always given me a great deal of comfort and perspective. But my breath work and my meditation work has given me a perspective and calmness that shocks me. Because what you said about me, I've always thought, you know what? I run a little hot. I'm just a wound up guy, and I've found that actually I don't think that's me. I think that was a program I was running for years, that I almost became addicted to these emotions of frustration and anxiety and worry, and sprinkling a little anger from time to time. That was kind of my cocktail of my emotions. And I find lately it's more like gratitude and bliss and peace and perspective.
Correct.
It's changed.
No, you're right. This is what even, what Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. Unless you become like a child from within, getting into that space of innocence within you, you can't get to the kingdom of my Father.
Do you do anything to center yourself? So you flew 18 hours last night, at least, plus the drive, plus this, plus that, plus it's LA, you're driving to me today. Is there anything you do before an interview like this, or a moment like this, or a day that helps center you? Is there something specific that you do?
No, I don't do anything, any of.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just your state of being now.
Yes. When you keep doing something for some time, and then it becomes very obvious in your nature, and you don't need to do anymore.
But you do believe in karma, and your definition of karma is something I had not heard before also. I thought karma was like, I do something bad, it's going to come back around and get me. I do something good, it's going to come back around and bless me. But I don't give it away, but you define karma as what?
See, karma is the impression in the mind.
Okay.
Karma has three connotations. One is it's the impressions, and then it is the tendencies, and it is the fruit of the action that you have already executed.
Okay.
So action is also called karma.
Action is karma.
Is
That
karma.
was the difference for me. What do you mean when you say that? Because that was the difference. That action is karma.
There is this term called karma yogi. Means you are putting your 100% and not worried about the result. That is karma yogi.
Hmm.
And your action is an expression of joy rather than expecting joy out of the action.
Wow. Can you say that again? Say that again.
See, usually you are doing a work to get joy from that.
Yes.
Instead of joy as a product of action,
Hmm.
now here joy as an instrument of action. You are happy and so you do it. You know?
Those are the people that I remember in my life. You know, those are the people that, the reason I want you to say it again, the people that I have recollections of that made impressions on me. They are joyful in their actions.
Yeah.
Not trying to get joy from the result of their
From
actions.
the result. No, you put your 100% and your action is out of joy.
Yeah, I think about watching Michael Jordan dunk a basketball with his tongue out, you know, and he's about to dunk. He's just in such bliss as he was doing what he did.
Yes.
Or a great artist playing a song and they're just lost in it, right? Or a speaker on the stage, or an incredible school teacher teaching a lesson, or a mother with their baby.
Yeah, you love what you're doing.
Right.
And you're not expecting some result out of it.
Yeah.
Even if you expect, that doesn't matter. But it's an expression of joy.
That's what I meant earlier when I said separating from outcome. Not being so caught up in the end result as the payoff.
Correct.
And I think there's actually studies now in the brain that say even when you get to the payoff, that the dopamine in your brain actually crashes when you get the reward. That the actual dopamine spike, the joy in your brain, is actually in the process and journey of getting there.
Action,
right? Yeah. They've actually measured it in the brain now. So it's how right you are. You also talk a lot about intuition and intuitive power. And I used to not rely on that. The Bible even talks about discernment as a gift, right? And I used to fear my intuition and not trust it and think, no, I've got to research this or know it. But people that I know that, you know, frankly, make great decisions in their life, they tap into their intuitive power. And you believe that we all have intuitive power, correct?
Absolutely. Every single person, even animals do have intuition. In fact, they're even more intuitive than human beings. We have intuitive power and we need to tap into it. That makes life a lot more fun and a lot more easier.
How do you do that? By just listening to that whisper, that voice in your heart, in your head?
For that, you need to have clarity in mind. If your mind is all with buzz of too many things and worries, forget about intuition. Again, here, breathing and breath work and meditation helps you to connect to that deeper self inside of you, which is not changing.
What specific thing? I want them to read the book and I want them to go to your courses too. So I want to don't give too much, but what about breathing? What could you teach us right now as it relates to our breathing that would benefit us?
See, the first act of life is you took a deep breath in. Then you started crying. The last act of our life is you will breathe out and you'll make others cry.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then you have not lived a good life.
Wow.
So in between, when we are breathing every day and night, we are releasing toxins from the body. We are bringing to rest our subconscious, unconscious mind. But we seldom attend to the breath, which has several patterns, several rhythms. So by attending to the rhythm of the breath, or breathing it in certain rhythms, sets the clock in its right perspective. You know, no point in having a clock showing Eastern time here in West Coast, right? Or giving a time of Israel in sitting in USA. So you need to set your clock to the current position where you are.
It's really true.
Like that, our mind, our body, our breath, our intellect, our memory, all these seven, our faculties, inner faculties, gets into rhythm. And so we are in the present moment.
That's what breathing's done for me. Focusing on my breath has brought me to I had a hard time just getting quiet, emptying my mind. And when I started to focus on my breath work, I realized I'm right here, right now.
And it's easy.
Yeah, and it's easy. It is
Easy.
so easy. It's interesting in life. The things that are the most wonderful in our lives, we need to be careful not to take for granted. So you have this amazing spouse, and maybe over time, because they're just there all the time, you begin to take them for granted. Or, you know, you have children in your home. Parents can relate to this. And boy, then when they leave, you just go, oh, I hope did I take it for granted when they were here? And breath is like that. Breath is with you all the time. And because it's with you all the time, don't you think we just sort of take it for granted that it's just there and it's not that big of a deal?
Correct.
You agree?
You're right.
Yeah. If you could see his face, he really agrees with me right now. So that's a good thing. Evidently, I've made a very profound point, which I love to hear. Okay. I'm going to get some good stuff on top of this. You say confusion is a temporary state. And I think that so many people in the world right now, they're confused. What's going on in the economy? What's going on in my own life? Am I really pursuing my true purpose? And people just, I feel like pain is temporary also in people's lives. But you talk about this idea that confusion is temporary, and I just wanted you to elaborate on that, because I think people think they're going to live in this perpetual state of not knowing their purpose or their passion or their cause or where they're going.
You know, knowledge comes in contrast. It's always like that. You can feel the cold because there is heat. Similarly, there has to be some clarity. Only then you can even feel the confusion. If the confusion is so perpetual, you can't even feel it. You can't even know that you are confused. So they all come in little doses or little gaps. So in the gap, you realize, oh, I was confused or I'm in confusion. That is a clarity, see?
Yes.
If I say that, oh, I am so confused, that means you have some clarity at least.
Right.
You realize what state you are in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we cannot generalize and eternalize everything. Usually we say, I generalize, I'm always like this, I'm always dull, and I'm always lazy. These are things that, we tend to see that way. But in reality, you simply have to take a little time for yourself to have the clarity dawn in you. I would say more than confusion today, people are in a state of uncertainty.
Yes.
Everything is uncertain. So that state of uncertainty causes more confusion in the mind about the choices.
What I was going to say about that was, I hope everybody can feel what I feel sitting really close to you, because energy is real. And when you're in the presence of somebody that has such peaceful energy or clarity, you tend to catch some of it. So like, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm finding myself like very at ease, very peaceful, very clear in what I'm thinking about and that I want to do. And I feel like that's almost like an energy frequency that you give off. And I guarantee you, everyone who's come in your presence feels this. It's just easier. It's easier.
You know, we convey more through our vibrations than through our words. You may talk for hours, but then if the vibration doesn't convey, nothing gets conveyed. So one can stand and talk about love for 1 hour, but if they're not living it, if it's not coming in the vibrational level, you don't feel anything.
You're right.
But a puppy in your home, a dog in your house can make you feel that love in no time. A baby can make you feel that vibes, right?
Yeah, just their vibrational frequency, just their presence.
Yeah.
And you should ask yourself, everybody, I want you to talk about this too. When I'm around you, it makes me evaluate other people I'm around. And what energy do they give me? And, I don't think people evaluate often enough the vibrational frequency they're getting from the people they surround themselves the most with. Do you believe there are toxic people? Do you believe there's toxic energy? Do you believe people should be more vigilant in their evaluation of the human beings they surround themselves with? What are your beliefs about that, your thoughts?
As I said, we are an energy field. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
each other's energy affect us.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose someone is very angry and they're coming with those vibes, and then of course it affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Unless and until you are very well established in yourself, you're
Right.
very strong, you're very centered, then you take them all as kids.
Yeah.
See, like a school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
a nursery school class teacher, kindergarten teacher, she knows kids come with all different emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they are jumping around, some is crying, some is yelling, some is angry, it doesn't affect the teacher.
It's true. It's true.
Because you have gone one step ahead to make yourself much stronger.
Mm.
So again, here breathing meditation, as if it is practiced regularly, will keep you in that state of positive energy. So the negative energy doesn't affect you that much as it would otherwise.
Maybe the best description I've heard of that is how you describe the 5 elements and then ending with light. Would you tell everybody about that? Because I think that light is energy, right? Can you tell them what the 5 elements are of?
See, we have earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are the elements.
Mm-hmm.
But one interesting thing, if you see, the lighter energy spreads more.
Spreads more.
Spreads more.
Mm.
The finer it is, it reaches more.
Mm.
So our mind is much lighter in the sense. In meditation, one can experience this. You cannot understand just as a concept.
Yeah.
But as an experience, you can get it if you sit with a teacher or learn or practice it, then it's easy.
I get asked a lot, and I always want to say this with all the love that I can muster for somebody, but they'll say, hey, I want to be the best speaker in the world like you, or I want to be a coach. And I often say, I think the thing you probably should do first is build your resume.
Yes.
Like, do something first. Have some credibility to your message. Say, this is what I did. The reason I wanted you on is you built real wealth as a young woman. The thing you just said, though, that when you got there, my understanding is you got to a certain point and you were like, this isn't great. I mean, I've got a bunch of money, but my life is not what I thought it would be. And I relate to that on some level, that other parts of my life weren't as rich as they should have been by the time I got to being rich financially.
Mm-hmm.
And that there actually became a part of me in my life, which I now don't believe, but I wondered for a while, like, was this worth it?
Mm-hmm.
What it did to me emotionally.
Yeah.
What it did to me physically. Because the amount of work really required to win is a lot. And I didn't take care of myself during those years. I didn't take care of my emotional well-being. I didn't heal some things in me. I was like, I don't know about you, but I was always like, I'll get around to it once I'm rich.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to this thing. I probably should. And by the way, maybe if I get rich enough, it'll just like go away.
Mm-hmm.
So what about for you?
So it's interesting because I think that it's a common thought in society that money solves problems.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly it can make life easier in a lot of ways and fuller in some ways. But when that's the goal, if it's only to build money, if it's only to be rich, you've really missed the point of the entire thing. And so I started at 19 and it was about 25, 26 years old. I had a couple commercial properties. I had a couple flips under my belt. You know, I was buying foreclosures at $20,000, $30,000 and selling them for $100,000. Like, not crazy, but just enough that while some friends were doing the bar scene and, you know, all of the golfing and all of that, I was flipping houses on the weekend. Like, that's what I was doing.
Exactly the same.
And so, you know, but I was doing all of that. And I think what happened was at 19, if looking back, I realized that I was trying to run from something, right? I was trying to become something. I had so much leverage of not wanting to be poor, not wanting to ever depend on anybody, to not ever need anybody. Because I thought if I need somebody financially, then they can control me. They have power over me. And coming from the childhood that I had, I didn't ever want to have someone have that control. And so I feel like I ran so hard that once I was getting there, if you will, I started getting there and having money and having all of these things. I was like, is this it? Like, did I climb this mountain? Did I get out of poverty? Did I overcome all of this for this? And I felt so empty. Like, I had more than I ever had in my life, but yet I felt empty. I'm like, how is this possible? And I had bought a building at the corner of town, and I had no clue what I was going to do with it, but it was a good deal, and so I bought it. And I was driving by that building that day. I was in a black Escalade, had the shoes from the outside, all the things that the girls want, right? And I'm like, what am I going to do with that building? And it was like a voice, just like us talking, said, put your animal shelter there. And I thought, I've never wanted an animal. Like, that was never a conscious thought in my mind. And it was like when I looked at that street and I saw the businesses that I owned and the buildings that I owned, and I heard that, it was like the recognition of everything I had and also what I didn't, all in the same moment. Because while I was trying to build wealth and build the business and become this thing, I realized that I was driving home to a guy I didn't even know if he loved me or cared about me. I had, friends that I wasn't even sure if they were really my friends or if it was just because of business and all of these other things. And when I heard that voice in that moment, it was like I realized that all of this really means nothing. That if the goal is to build money and have the things and to be rich, we actually miss the whole point of why we're here. It's to contribute, it's to give, it's to make a difference. And so from that moment on, I took, again, in fear, no clue on how to start a nonprofit. I took every step forward on figuring out how to start a nonprofit and how to take this building that I bought and turn it into an animal shelter and start saving lives. And then, we grew on from there and developed a sanctuary and have programs for at-risk youth and kids that are abused. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting when you're running from something that you sometimes forget to pause and realize how far you've come. Because sometimes those mountains, we get so focused on climbing that mountain that we don't realize that maybe this next mountain isn't for us to climb. Maybe we need to look back and acknowledge on all of those hills that we came through and see if maybe there's something we've missing. Sometimes I feel like we're so focused on what we want in life that sometimes we miss what we can actually have.
Oh, wow.
And that it might just be that much bigger and bolder than what we truly want. Yeah,
you're amazing. That's wonderful that you've done that, by the way. One of my favorite things I ever said on the show, right there.
Oh.
In 500 shows or whatever it is. We're a lot alike. And I think it's okay to be running from something. Like, the truth is, my main driver for many years was not to be rich. It was to not be broke.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's because, like, when my dad would drink, I was worried he was going to leave, and my mom was a homemaker and had no way to support our family, or I don't know what it is. But I know I've always been very much not wanting to be broke. And so I ran from that. Many people can relate to this. I know you did too. I ran from, like, whatever bad stuff happened to me when I was a kid. I wanted to get as far from that as I could. I ran from my lack of confidence. I ran from feeling insecure. I ran from fear, right? I ran from those things. And I actually think most successful people have that in common, and it's okay. But I want everybody to hear this, because I'm writing about it right now, but I just think what you just said is so eloquent. It's okay to be running from something, but at some point in that race, you have to begin to run towards what your dream is, towards what fulfills you. That'll only take you so far. And when you finally get away from it, like you said, I'm rich now, I'm no longer poor. You go, this was it? Because I never ran towards what I wanted to become. I didn't run towards what I wanted to create. I didn't run towards what I wanted to give. And it was only till later in life, maybe like 20 years ago, that I went, I'm going to both not be back there poor, and I want to live richly. I want to give. I want to share my message with the world. I want to grow and contribute to people. So in the midst of running from something, if you're at that stage, it's okay. Just heed our advice. At some point, begin to run towards who you want to become as well. And what you'll learn is that you don't have to really run towards it. It's already within you.
It is.
And you just magnify more and more of who you've always been in there when you find your real home.
And that's all that money really is.
Right. It's a magnifier. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, if you are already a good person and you have a heart to help people, and maybe you're doing that right now in some way, like all that money is going to do is give you that. It's going to magnify it. If you're a jerk, you're just going to be a bigger jerk with money. That's really all it is. It's going to magnify who you are. And so for me, it gave me the ability to, buy my dad a motorcycle and, you know, be able to like just gift and donate and serve and start a farm and all these things. And I think that's really where it is. But I think where people get tripped up is they sometimes have the big idea, they have the big dream, and then it gets replaced with big fear of either not being enough or not, you know, having the right education or not being from the right family. And so one of the things I did is really young, and I don't know where I got this from, but I started writing down all of the things I overcame on a list, like just literally writing it down. And if you're not driving, you're listening to this, I would encourage everyone to do this because I think it's a really powerful exercise. I've never heard anyone else talk about this, but grab a sheet of paper. And if you're struggling with something right now, if you don't know, like, you know, what is this thing for me, or I'm too scared to do this next thing, or I can't create wealth, I'm always going to be here because of X, Y, and Z. I want you to write down everything that you've overcome, everything that was sent to destroy you, everything that was meant to cripple you. And write down all of those things. Was it, you know, losing a parent or losing a child, or not being able to have a child, or, you know, suffering abuse in some way? Like, everyone has pain and trauma. And I want you to, like, when you're about to do this next thing, whether you get inspired from this and you want to go create wealth or start a business, like, and that fear creeps up, you got to pull out that list and review all of those things and remember who you are. Remember that you survived 100% of your worst days because you're still here. And if you can accomplish all of that, who's to say that this business or starting a Roth IRA or yada, yada, like, it's all a joke because you've got through all of this other stuff. And I think that's so important for people to remember that how powerful they truly are.